Some of my friends and family have asked, what is fire school like? So we put this video together to give you a little bit of an insight. I hope you enjoy. Approximately 6.5 months ago, a group of 32 students walked through the Northwest Regional Fire Training Center for the first time. The first day of class, we spent it filling out some paperwork, dividing into squads, and selecting our squad and class leader. We were divided into 4 squads. Each squad would learn to depend on each other to accomplish a mission, just like we would once we graduated and began working as part of a department. We then spent some time on the history of the fire service. It's good to learn how the fire service started and grew from what it was to what it is today. The improvements of technology and a lot of trial and error and focus on prevention has helped greatly with the reduction of loss of property and lives. Then class shifted to the importance of firefighter health and rehabilitation. We learned it is important to pay attention to what our bodies are saying and to make sure to rest between evolutions to ensure we safely and effectively are able to continue to perform on the fire ground. The class's next focus was on personal protection equipment and the self-contained breathing apparatus, or SCBA. It was stressed that we need to make sure we are using the right personal protection equipment to protect ourselves from the large variety of hazards we could be exposed to. Some of the things are the silent and long-term hazards that plague firefighters in their retirement years. We then shifted gears and moved on to building construction and learned about things like balloon construction, parapet walls, and the current lightweight construction. It's important to understand building construction as you go to fight fires because there are special considerations for each building type. After a short break for Thanksgiving, we came back to learn about fire behavior, learn about the fire triangle, how fire moved, how ventilation affects fire, the different types of fire, and how to read a fire to prepare to battle with it. We then moved on to everyone's favorite subject. That's right, ropes and knots. We learned about the different types of rope, the importance of the different ropes, those in the fire service for life safety, and moving or securing tools. We were taught about a bite, a loop, and a round turn. Many of us since had nightmares about ropes and knots. We were then taught how to tie knots that we will need in our career as firefighters and how to use ropes to lift a variety of tools on the fire ground. We then spent some time learning about fire extinguishers, how to inspect, service, and use them efficiently. After one day of classwork, we then got to use a variety of fire extinguishers on a couple of types of fires to see how effective a small water can is on a fire, and a dry chemical extinguisher is on an oil fire. It's a highlight for many of us at this point in class because we actually got to interact with fire and put some of what we learned into action. For the next lesson in class, we went on a field trip to Boardman Avenue and got a tour of Central Dispatch. It's a busy evening. We saw lots of calls being handled by the professional staff at 911. We learned about the radios we would use in the county and how to communicate on the fire ground. Then in December, we came together as a family, covering mental wellness and family, where you play an important part in helping ensure the safety and mental well-being of your favorite first responder. The next couple of classes, we focus on ladders. We learned how to inspect them, maintain them, and how to throw them safely and efficiently. We learned that the most important phrase for the ladder practical at the end of class was, "Checking for overhead obstructions!" While we joke about how annoying it is, we have to say that every time we are throwing a ladder in class, it may just save our lives later in our career. The last subject before Christmas break was fire and life safety. We learned about pre-planning on a variety of different types of developments and structures. We learned about the considerations we need to remember when it comes to fighting fires at a high-rise building, commercial structures, healthcare facilities, and of course, correctional facilities. We were taught what we can do to help save both property and lives with a well-developed pre-incident plan. When we got back from Christmas break, we learned about how to hook a hydrant, drafting from a static water source, and then we began to flow water, putting some of the different skills we have learned together, and we finally got together for a 2-day weekend of hands-on learning. This will probably be the weekend that Squad 1 remembered the most, because of all the issues we had drawing a draft in the beginning. However, it was a great experience on how to troubleshoot drafting issues. We also learned, just because an indicator says a tank is full, it may in fact be empty. This was probably the most fun instructors and students had so far in school. We were learning how to flow water from a fire hose, going up the stairs, and of course, going back down the stairs. We learned how to move as a team, and how important it was to make sure the fire did not get behind you. One student may have even had the opportunity to spray an instructor in the face while going up the stairs. The student cried out in fear, "I was just putting the wet stuff on the red stuff as I was told." The next lesson was forcible entry and firefighting tools. This was a pretty fun class. We got to bust through props built for us to practice using the tools and techniques in order to gain entry into a structure. We got to use a Halligan and a flathead axe to gain entry through the metal commercial door prop. We learned how to use the axe and Halligan tool in coordination and limit a chance for us to get hurt while doing it. Just like in real life, some attempts were more challenging than others. That taught us that each situation is going to be different, and some doors are just open easier than others. A valuable lesson some of us learned was a good technique will trump brute strength more often than not. We then got to play. Learn to use the chainsaw and the K12 rotary saw. The instructor shows how to use the saw for ventilation of a peaked roof and a flat roof. They also show us how to clean and maintain them. Once again, stressing that we clean and maintain the tools per manufacturer's instructions. Our class is thankful to be able to use these new roof props to allow more students to get through the evolutions in a more timely manner. The turnover time on changing the plywood was pretty quick compared to the old way. And after we completed this evolution, the next class marked the midway through. That's right, we got to take our midterm. I know pressure for me was pretty high to get through that, but we all did pretty good. I couldn't believe how fast the first part of the class went. We then transitioned to establishing and a transitioning of command before moving on to search and rescue. We spent the day carrying our air packs while we were on the training grounds, and throughout the day we were going on and off air as we went through the various evolutions. We spent time out in the hotel, filled with smoke, practicing right hand and left hand searches. We would search until we found the dummy, then we would drag it out. I remember thinking to myself, this has to get easier. I felt so slow. I can tell you that with practice, it did get easier and smoother to perform the search and rescue. One thing I can say without hesitation, that I slept real good that night. The next skill we learned was salvage and overhaul. We heard of the examples of poorly done overhaul where the fire rekindled just hours later and the departments needed to respond back to a structure fire they thought they had put out. That does not make your department look real good to have it rekindle due to poor overhaul. We learned how to pull the ceiling without it coming down on top of us. We learned about the various tools at our disposal to do an effective overhaul. We also learned it is good customer service to work on salvage as soon as possible to help protect the possessions from any further damage whenever possible. CPR and basic life-saving skills were the next skill we worked on. Often firefighters arrive on the scene before the ambulance crews, as a crucial skill to help preserve the lives of those we serve. We then learn skills important to our safety and the safety of our crews. Firefighter survival. We practice the skills that will be crucial to us if things turn ugly while we're fighting fire. We learned how to get our bearings if we get disoriented while working in a dark, smoke-filled building. We learned how to self-rescue, as well as air management in case we find ourselves running low on air. We also learned how to rescue a downed firefighter. We then transitioned to wildland firefighting, learning the basics of how to stay safe while fighting a wildland fire. We learned about the tactics used and a variety of resources that may help us contain a larger wildland fire.
Break the last take 3. You gotta break it. Oh, break it. Hey. I think I would have.
After wildland firefighting, we transitioned to another skill, and it was probably a favorite weekend of many in our class. We had a field trip to Gene's Auto Parts, where they set up several cars for us to practice extrication on. We learned how to rescue people when they were trapped in their vehicle. We also had it reinforced to us that before you put any tools on the vehicle, we try to handle before we pry. Then we had the opportunity to use a variety of tools to cut open and pry open doors. We learned how to stabilize a vehicle using airbags and cribbing. One of the final sections of class was hazmat, or hazardous materials. And we learned how to assist special rescue teams. This meant we got to take another field trip, this time to Elmwood Township, where we learned how to put on the various types of hazardous material suits and how to set up decontamination areas. Then finally, we got the fire suppression, where we learned to kind of put everything together for an eventful, practical weekend at the Regional Training Center, or RTC, where we got to flow water, practiced a variety of techniques for fire suppression, and of course, exposure protection. Once we showed proficiency in the basics of firefighting, we earned the right for a practice in a live burn scenario. We're able to see how a real fire reacted to ventilation, applying water to the area of the fire, and hitting the fire directly with the water. We're able to see how conditions changed and what we would feel under real fire conditions. We felt the heat as it worked through our bunker gear. We felt the air we were breathing heat up as the tanks we were carrying around warmed up. We felt the temperature drop when we introduced water near the fire. And we were able to see the thermal layer move up and down based on the air temperatures and how the building was ventilated and whether or not we were flowing water. We also saw how quickly the fire would grow once we took the water off. We saw how fast and furious that fire could get. It's one thing to hear about it or see it in a video. It's completely different to actually experience it firsthand. Here in Grand Traverse County, we're fortunate to have an amazing facility like the Northwest Regional Fire Training Center for us and our departments to train at.
It's dark! Man, engine 1, making entry out. Delta side.
Congratulations, Northwest Regional Fire Training Center Class of 2023 graduates. We made it. It was a long 6 months, but we made it.